you know, it just took some time for me to really get to it. And we'll get into like, you know, some of the choices and the mistakes and things that I made. Yeah, things that I made along the way to really learn from that. But I think that was really it for me. It was like, you know, not really accepting that sense of complacency of like, okay, cool, you know, I'll stay at home for a while, get a job, you know, figure it out, and then just kind of move up through the ranks from there. So yeah, that was it. I think just more for me, for the most part, was not accepting that.
Yes, I'm a product of my environment, essentially, but I'm also someone who wants to see change from my environment at the same time. So.
Well, we're gonna get into exactly what all that looks like, but y'all are gonna have to wait, because we'll be back next episode.
Word from our sponsor.
What you drink, yeah. Sapphire Bombay, only what you think, yeah. Looks like we'll be tied up for some weeks, yeah. Lockdown, can't see no end. Top down, but we rollin', we all in. What you drink, yeah. Sapphire Bombay, only what you think, yeah. Looks like we'll be tied up for some weeks, yeah. Lockdown, can't see no end. Top down, but we pourin', we all in. I'm taking it slow, ain't no time for no hold up. I thrust in it slow, then the wood beat that up. Bust a cloud like a bomb, yeah, I'm up before.
All right, well, welcome back. I know we left you on a cliffhanger, but this is, again, just really not letting our environment dictate where we're going, or, you know, not letting our past dictate our future, and being a product of your environment. And so Vaughn was getting into it, you know, in the last episode, just what he's exposed to, and really what we've all been exposed to. That's a word to access, right? And speaking on access, right, if you're used to environment, a culture, a community of non-education, doing things you aren't supposed to do, it's real easy to fall into that as being your norm, right? And you gotta wanna dream bigger, you gotta want something different for yourself and be a leader in that front to make something different.
So I guess my question to you all would be like, what made you all want to be different from what you all saw as the norm from where you're from? Like Titus, you said people were complacent, right? You like complacency was the norm. Vaughn, you said, you know, people are doing things they aren't supposed to. We dealing with, you know, violence at a very young age. What made you not want to fall subject to those, I would say, precedents that were set, you know, by the community that you all were, essentially, that you came from at a very early age? What made you want to be different?
I think for me, it was like a lot of expectation setting, right? Like I was the first person from my immediate family, like, to graduate college. And so that was something that I, you know, wanted to carry with me, because I wanted to start that to be the mode for, you know, generations to come, and it had to start somewhere. And so I would always go back and forth, you know, with my dad about like little stuff. Like we go back and forth about me doing like yard work or fixing stuff around the house. And I'd be like, nah. And he'd be like, all right, well, you need to basically make a lot of money in your life because you have to pay people to do a lot of stuff since you don't want to do a lot of these things. So for me, I think that was like a lot of it was just carrying that with me, an expectation, like I said, that was set. And so I saw a lot of people, I think, you know, just around me, like where I come from, typically people play ball, they were like an athlete or got into other things. And so nobody ever, you know, was doing anything that I thought was, you know, cool, like working at like a Google. Like nobody ever thinks of, or becoming an attorney, right? Like nobody really spoke that type of promise into our lives from my day to day. Like where I was from, everybody in any sort of position of authority was white, right? Like from police officers to firemen to teachers, principals, etc. And so I kind of had to come up, you know, like you said, just with that on my own. And a lot of it came from me just carrying that, like wanting to be the first person from my family to, you know, graduate college and do something with my life on a more professional or corporate setting. Not did I know where that was going to go ultimately? Not at all. I had no clue. I just felt like if I took steps, you know, into the right direction, which were, you know, getting an education, taking my academics seriously, that would ultimately, you know, lead to success, or like the, you know, the seeds that we typically plant, they'll bear fruit. And so that was like the perspective that I've always had ever since, like, you know, I was young and growing up.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of times with social media, you see people say extra circle is important, like surround yourself with people, to uplift you to get like where you want to go. But I think that what people don't realize is that between the ages of like 12 and 16 are the most important ages to really get to where you really need to go. Mm-hmm. And I say that because, I was lucky enough to not go to my neighborhood high school. My parents forced me into going to Whitney Young High School. And I didn't want to go, because I knew it was different. Like I felt comfortable being around people and kids and that, were like me, poor, went through certain situations. We were all going through the same things, but I felt like I didn't belong at Whitney Young, So, and when I got there, I met people who, because Michael Jordan's kids went there and stuff. Yeah. And then there's people whose parents have this and have that. And I'm first day of school, we're not wearing a uniform. I gotta figure out a fit, like I don't know what to wear, So, but I think having people around me who were talking about going to school and these dreams and things like that, it made me think about, well, wow, that is a possibility like for me, like now, but I would have never known that if I didn't go to that high school. So I think that being from the West Side, like I tell all of my friends from the West Side, like it is good to get out of the city and leave, but at the same time, it's like I had people who say, no, you need to go here. But I think it's important for me and my peers from the West Side to stay here and say the same things to people who are still growing up in the West Side. So it was tough, taking the bus to school every day, the trains, and then coming back home to my friends, like who didn't go to Whitney Young, but they were like laughing, oh, you're just smart, you're a nerd, this and that. So you got to bypass all of that to just be like, this is for a bigger purpose. And through that, I'm sure I inspire people who probably never even met me before and say, wow, like I was in 6th grade with Javon. Like now he's doing this. I get hit up on Facebook all the time, like, man, you're doing this is what I want to do, et cetera, et cetera. But basically what I'm trying to say is that like it just takes that one person or that one realization to say, hey, my life could be different. I want it to be different because this is what I've been through. This is what I see around me. So I really encourage people like from the West Side to stay on the West Side. You always see me tweeting about the West Side, posting Instagram about the West Side because I'm proud to be from there, and I need people from the West Side who are still there to understand, like, there are opportunities, but I think it just takes, someone to show them that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely, and I think when you talk about a lot of what you talk about, there's so many things that go into that. I mean, there's so many times you could have gave up. Mm-hmm. There's so many times when it could have got hard. There's so many times where Titus, you talk about just having exposure to white people, like there's a relatability factor there. Mm-hmm. So if you don't see someone that you think you could be like, mm-hmm. or having someone who takes the leadership role of saying like, no, let me expose you to something different. And that's why what we're doing, right, is access is important. Let's expose you to different circles, different areas so that you can see a different part of yourself that maybe you weren't exposed to.
It's important that you touched on like having access, right? I think that's a very important part of what this podcast is supposed to serve as, because like the reality situation, a lot of people, all they need is someone who can invest in them. But even if you don't have that, you need to be able to see examples of who you want to be like, who aspire to be like. And if you can see yourself in the individual who you consider successful, that's literally just a nudge in the right direction that you may need to push you to be who you were destined to be, essentially, right? And breaking those chains that they kind of hold us back a lot of the time, where like especially on like South Side, the West Side, especially like you see a lot of these kids. Like Yoshi and I went to we did a panel for Black Men's Leadership Association for kids on the from the West Side primarily, and it's like you can see in these kids like they have so much potential to be successful, and they just don't have a clue on what does that look like.
I think mentorship is like the biggest thing. One of my mentors would always say to me, like, comfort is the enemy to achievement. And so it's the very things that, that make you feel comfortable that can oftentimes, be your shortcomings, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's holding on to things that, you're used to by not, being able to venture out and branch off and understand what opportunities may be available. Like you said, you don't know what's accessible. It's like you said, when you talk about accessibility, for me, that was the biggest thing, because truth be told was when I went off to college for the first time, other than the way I was raised, I really had like no guidance, right? Like I got into a lot of trouble, ended up, having to leave my first university, not one of my proudest moments in life, because the truth be told was I didn't have the tools and I wasn't equipped to really understand what it was that I was supposed to be doing, going there to really like handle my business. And so I didn't have that like mentorship, because nobody from my family had finished college, right? So they couldn't tell me, right, like how to navigate and deal with like, being at a PWI and like what to get involved in. And so I spent a lot of my free time getting involved in things that I should not have been. Right. And after that, I realized like I had to change, just my overall surroundings. And it took people who genuinely cared about my future and having mentors who were willing to sow seeds into me. They said, hey man, like these are the things that we need to focus on. We need to put a plan together, right? Like we're not just going to continue to live like day to day with no purpose or just seeing where life goes ultimately. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of, I think, helped was just like, mentorship, I think is like the biggest thing that we need is, like you said, we need to see people in these spaces and navigating these spaces and being successful to understand that it is achievable and it is attainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Also, I think that we need to, redefine what success looks like in the Black community, because, the reason why people or kids make so many mistakes at a young age is because they think that they have to get a certain amount of money or be a certain, like, dress a certain way, etc. But at the same time, like, success should also be defined on how many people are also living well off just like you. And, and all my friends, like, who know me know how much work I put in on the West Side, and how many times the small things I do. If I do a community service event, I just post it like, hey, this is what I'm doing, hoping that someone would be inspired to also do the same thing and have a ripple effect. So with me, it's like, I don't think that I've succeeded yet. I mean, yeah, I've got the job, making good money, I'm taking care of my mom, my family's good, but at the same time, there's 6-year-old kids who's probably, hungry somewhere on the West Side or not knowing where they're going to be in 5 years, and nobody that's around them is going to care about where they end up at. And so there's people like me who have a duty and a responsibility to show face, to show success in some way. It looks different for everybody on how you want to impact your community or the folks that you want to bring up, but at the same time, success is not about, in my opinion, how much you're making or whatever. It's just about what you're doing to change the perspective and the communities and in the long run for people to come behind you. So most folks don't know, but I deal with anxiety every day. I take medication for it. And a lot of that comes from because I feel like there's a lot that I'm not doing, a lot that I want to do, and it's just one of me, So my therapist told me, like, there's things that you can't control everything, but in the spaces that I am in, it's like there's nothing I'm doing that hopefully people see it and they also extend that same effect and so on and so on. So I just encourage people who are successful to just show more face to people who don't look like them and are in the same spaces as them and didn't have the same luxuries as them, to show them, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is how I went about it, and just kind of like have an effect on them in any way that they can. So
I'm gonna take the time right now too. I mean, that's important, right? That's the whole point of this, is how can we make space for others? Yeah. And even if it's one person, we fall so much into this idea that we have to do it on such a huge scale, right? To be successful, you gotta have 1 million followers. You gotta do it on such a big scale, but honestly, impact to me is changing one person's life. Yep. And if you can do that, then you don't know what that person can do, right? You might be raising the next leader of 1,000, of 1 million, exactly. Right? And so if you can really pour into one person, take that long approach, that's how the world gets changed, right? But most of us is like, well, it's not worth my time because I don't have anyone I can relate to. I don't know where my impact lies, and I'm not going to take the time to even figure that out because of this fear or this idea that, like, why me, right? And they're not going to listen to me. Exactly. But someone can resonate, and that's why we hope to capture here. But I'm curious, right? You know, is you know, you probably had many times where you could have been a product of your environment. So what were some of the choices that you had to make? And what's really the importance of these relationships that you guys keep talking about? Like, in practical experience, like, what was the importance on your life of being able to seek out a different outcome?
So, you know, I remember I was 16, and I got a phone call saying that my best friend got arrested for got stolen a car on a show called Bait Car. It's where they put cars in, you know, like, I guess poor neighborhoods and encourage people to steal the car. So I had a friend of mine who actually ended up
Took the bait,
lost his, you know, his college, you know, scholarships, everything like that. Just messed his life up, you know. And honestly, it just takes you being sick and tired of seeing the same things over and over again. You know, and to be honest, it's character. There's people who are like, you know what, like, you know, I gotta eat, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, you know, but there's some people who, you know, are tired of seeing certain things, they want to change it. So I can't really answer your question to the extent I think how you want it, but I just really think that it's going to take people wanting to see a difference and wanting, you know, something different for people around them. Because to be honest, we live in a selfish world. Everybody wakes up thinking, how am I going to do this for me? And we don't get enough of, okay, I'm seeing this happen. You know, I won't feel right unless I know that someone gets to experience exactly what I'm experiencing. Because a lot of times in my life where I've gone and done great things and I got friends who follow me who I know don't get the opportunities to. And I feel bad. You know, I'm like, man, like, I'm doing this, but they're doing that. But I have to really talk to God and really seek out, like, okay, you have this platform, you are doing this. How can you ensure that someone is looking at you and thinking I can do that too as well? So I think that's where I'm at in my life right now and with my peers as well. Just trying to make that a norm, you know, just to make sure that everybody else is also thinking about how they can affect other people. So as you said before, it just takes that, you know, you never know like who you're going to raise or who you're going to touch, you know, who could impact, you know, so many other people. So it just really takes actually caring, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
For me, it kind of took for me, I think, to kind of go through it. I was 19 at the time, and so I had kind of gotten into a fight with me. Some of my homies got into, you know, a squabble with some other cats. And so it ended up with me, you know, being kicked out of school. I also was caught up in the belly of the beast, known as the, you know, American legal justice system, which knows no social class, no nothing. You know, they just see you as a young black male and they feed on that, right? Yep. And they prey on that. And so finding myself there, I was like, man, this is not somewhere that I want to be or continuously, like, you know, spending my life or my time over and over again. And I was like, man, you know, I made a vow, I guess, like to self, like, if I make it out of this situation, you know, yeah, I got to do different. I got to make better choices, and I got to, you know, understand that opportunities are also, you know, when you look like us, opportunities are earned, they're not given. You know what I mean? And I think that was the thing that I didn't really realize at that time. And so it was an eye-opening experience, I think, for me, because it helped me relate more to people who did not maybe come up the same way, right, that I did in a somewhat of a privileged environment, per se. And so I got to see what life was like from a much different perspective. And so from there, you know, it just kind of started to guide my choices. And I started to be a lot more, you know, anal with the decisions that I make and more calculated with the way that I was like spending my time. So I had to kind of, you know, figure out life. I went back to school, got a second chance, essentially like at another university at DePaul, graduated from there, and I ended up moving out to Chicago, which was an eye-opening experience for me because what I learned, again, like, it's the things that make us comfortable that tend to hold us back. And so for me, moving to the city initially was like a scary thing with all the things that y'all say that go down right in Chicago, being from the burbs. I was like, nah, I'm not really, you know, I'm not really getting too caught up in that. But Chicago actually helped me grow so much and so fast as an individual. And so it took for me to have an older cousin who lived out here at the time, who was big into like hospitality and things of that nature. He took me under his wing and was like, bro, this is where you need to be. You want to go to school for business, right? You're trying to figure out that process. And here's somewhere where you can learn and you can grow pretty fast. And so I was like, man, I'm so happy I made that choice and that decision, because I think it ultimately led to me, you know, getting internships and things like that, right? Like I got a second chance at school, so I was able to make sure that I was able to do it right versus just, okay, I'm going to class every day and then I'm going back to my dorm. I was trying to make sure that I was shaking the right hands and making the right connections and meeting, you know, the right people. And so that was kind of how that started. And so I think when you talk about impact and giving back, you know, I think of even me and Khalil's relationship, you know, where that started. He was a new cat at Google.
My man's helped me out a lot. I was under the wing.
Right. And doing that, I saw somebody young, black, and I was like, yo, like, I think that, you know, he could definitely probably use a little bit of assistance so he don't have to go through the same things that I did coming out the gate, right? And help him get on a fast track. And then he started to do the same thing. And then we kind of helped him, myself, along with Maya, help put an initiative together, right, for every, you know, black employee that came in after us to help them, you know, avoid the pitfalls and be successful coming out the gate. And I think all of them got promoted, right? Like within a year and a half, right? They got promoted. So I think that is really seeing like what space that you fit in. But I think of like me at, you know, getting in trouble and making the poor decisions that I made at 19, 20 years old, and being like, the decisions that I made then to fix and change my life ultimately impacted where I am now. And sometimes that's hard to really see, but, you know, potential is one of those things that, you know, you just kind of have to tap into.
There's so much pressure that comes with like having to like change the dynamic of my family. And then even at a, you know, higher perspective, there's pressure that comes with, I don't want to be another statistic. I just don't want to be another person that they can just throw me into that number, right? So with all that pressure, like, what I want to know, like, what did you all ever come to a point where you felt like, yeah, I'm exhausted? Like, I know we don't talk enough about like mental health in the Black community, but like, I can't really deal with this no more. Like the pressure is kind of weighing on me. You felt like giving up. I'm tired, right? And then if you ever did experience that moment, why didn't you, you know, call it quits? I would say in this specific instance, right, you all didn't, right? We haven't arrived yet, right? We still have so much work to do, but like I said, I'm very big on giving people their flowers right here. Titus, my boy, you made my Google experience definitely amazing, because Lord knows I did not want to move to Ann Arbor, Michigan at all. And you definitely saved me in that instance. And then Javon, I don't know if I tell you enough, but I'm proud of you though, because you like Frito-Lay, you jumped to Clorox. Now you're an entrepreneur in the same sense. Like you wear multiple hats. And you do it well, brother. Like, you made me look good. You made me look good behind the camera. So, you know, so I'm like, the work that I've seen you do and in just such little time, and I tell people this all the time, like, you kind of inspired this podcast in a sense, because I remember when you used to come to me and was like, I'm about to be a photographer. I love taking pictures of people. I'm about to be a photographer. And you really put your foot down and move that. You made that happen very quickly, and like your clientele is crazy right now. And if you really think about it, in a very short time frame. Yeah. Now look at you. So I want to know, like, have you all ever experienced like those moments where you felt like I just can't do it no more, and then why didn't you give up when you could have? Because it's very easy to be like, yeah, I'm gonna tap out. I'm done.
Yeah, I would say you mentioned pressure, and I think pressure does two things, right? It either bursts pipes or it creates diamonds.
Hey!
There you go.
I should have never said that.
Yes! but yeah, I think that's kind of what happens. like I said, I was getting to a point, man, where I was like, I had to transfer school. So I went to junior college first. I was full-time student, and I had like 2 or 3 jobs at the time. So it was like crazy because, you know, my dad's like, yo, if you're moving back in, you got to work. You know what I mean? Like, you got to learn from this experience, and you got to become better from it. And so I worked, went to school, did it, and it was getting to a point where it was like, yeah, I don't know what school is going to even allow me, you know, accept me in. I don't know how I'm going to navigate through this point. But I come from a, you know, Christian family. So, you know, we pray and we meditate on his word day and night. You know, I also, uniquely, I also used to watch Muse a lot, right? So it's a documentary, you know, with yours truly, Kobe. He talks about the Mamba mentality and all the things that he went through. And so, you know, bad days or bad moments in my life, I would honestly turn oftentimes like to that doc just to hear about, you know, ways that he went about handling the pressure and things that you mentioned. And it's like, typically, if you kind of just, you can't expect progress to happen overnight. You just have to trust that the things that you are doing will end with the positive result that you want. And that's all you can focus on. Like, if you focus on the negatives or, you know, how things can go wrong, that creates way for that to happen. But if you consistently try to focus on the positive income and the positive outcome, and figuring out how you can control like that narrative and be like the puppet master, right, like of your own life and be able to dictate the choices and decisions that you make, then you'll be satisfied with that. And if you fail, you'll be able to say, hey, you know what, I did everything that I could to possibly get to where it was that I wanted to go. So I think for me, it was really, again, just like tapping into that space where I was like, you know, nothing is really going to stop me or get in my way in terms of what it is that I want to do, because I see the vision. It's just up to me to implement that. And there are a lot of people who were counting on me, and I looked at it as a blessing, honestly. Like, they're not counting on me because they want to make my life hard. You know, people are counting on me because they believe in me, they trust in me, and so I just had to believe in myself.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I feel pressure like all the time, like every day. You feel me? I mean, you talk all the time, you know, like everybody's fine. You're so stressed out. Just relax. You know what I mean? But, you know, it's like, but at the same time, it's just like, I just know, like, if I ever go broke, like, I'm broke. Like, I don't have, like, family that can just, like, oh, like, Mom, I need this, or I need that. You know, I'm taking care of, you know, people. Like, I will admit I had a parent who's a drug addict for, you know, at a certain point in time. So, you know, every day I wake up, it's like, I'm not going to like stop, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's like, you know, like, and it's like somebody has to do this, like, in my family, my generation, so the next person doesn't have to do it. You feel me? So I feel the pressure, but at the same time, I know everything I do is like, it's beneficial to somebody I don't even know yet, which is like my kid or my nephews and their kids, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to create a space for people around me that don't have to work as hard as what I'm trying to say. So the pressure is going to always be there, but you got friends, you got people around you that always remind you and help you and encourage you and reassure you and things like that. So my circle of people that I have, like Noops and my high school friends, everybody else, makes the pressure a little easier for me, is what I'm trying to say. So, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is everybody feels pressure. I think it's important to have a circle around you that you can lean on in times of that pressure, because you can't always talk to your mom or your sister about certain things. Your friends are the ones who actually really know what you're really going through at certain points of time, and know what you actually need and stuff like that. So I just think keeping the right circle around you is just important.
And I'm gonna wrap up the convo by saying, like, what you're getting at, honestly, is being sort of a shark in a fish tank. Eventually, you should outgrow your community if it was done right? And no shark, I mean, it's very comfortable because you're the big fish in the pond, and it's very easy to feel comfortable and operate in your sense of comfort. And so for most of us, our environment is comfortable, right? But growth doesn't lie in your sense of comfort. You literally stated that. So to me, you know, I want to just say that, like, I really encourage everybody watching that, like, you know, to operate in your space of discomfort, operate in your space of what does it mean to grow, but also put yourself in the ocean, because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot that you've never been exposed to, but you have to be willing to jump in to even get those things that come with being in a bigger space to grow. Because they say, like, literally a shark can't grow to its full capacity in a fish tank, all right? It'll literally stop growing. And so if you put yourself in an environment where you can't grow, what do you expect to happen, right? So, I mean, we appreciate you guys. Mm-hmm. This has been quite the tone setter for the rest of the season.
For sure.
We're gonna do a toast. I think we're gonna start doing a toast to what will be success. We're interested to know what you guys have to say. I will let you guys do the first toast.
What should we toast to today?
You said first toast?
First toast, man.
First toast,
man.
What are we toasting to?
I say, to growth, success, and nothing less, man.
Ooh, and it rhymes.
Cheers,
It rhymes. Cheers.
Appreciate you.
I'm an air tap.
Yeah, Sapphire Bombay, only what you think. Yeah, looks like we'll be tied up for some weeks.